Well, welcome everyone. My name is Christine Kohl-Zaugg, and I'm the Executive Director at Sustainable San Mateo County. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all for our 2020 Indicators Report launch event. So as you see on this first slide here, we have an event hashtag, so feel free to use it freely and often. And with that, let's get started right now. Okay, oops. All right, so here's the agenda for today. I'm going to give a very brief overview about Sustainable San Mateo County, or SSMC, for those of you who do not know our organization yet. And then this will be followed by our Indicators Report Program Manager, Akansha Yadav. She will provide some highlight on our Indicators Report 2020. We will then move to our keynote speaker, Josh Becker. He is a public policy innovator and state Senate candidate. And we'll wrap it up with a panel discussion with David Caneda from Ideas Consulting, Silvia Lee from Facebook, and Philip Kobernik of Peninsula Clean Energy. So real briefly about Sustainable San Mateo County, some key facts. We have been around for over 30 years. We are a local nonprofit organization, and our focus is San Mateo County. Our mission really is a sustainable future for everyone in San Mateo County, and we do look at sustainability through the lens of the 3 E's: the economy, the environment, and social equity. We believe all 3 need to be in balance for us in order to have true sustainability. So wanted to briefly address our key programs. So the first 2 are the Indicators Report and the Awards Program. So the Indicators Report measures and tracks progress. It's all about metrics, and Akansha will tell us a little bit more in a minute about the Indicators Report. And then we also have our annual award ceremony. And that really is to celebrate our local sustainability heroes and inspire others to follow suit. And it's very inspiring because both programs have actually been around for over 20 years. So very solid, very long-standing, and well-beloved programs. New since about 1.5 years is the Sustainability Ideas Bank. We realize that we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. And so what this is all about is we are collecting and sharing sustainability solutions that are easy to replicate and scale up or scale down. So I'm going to do a quick plug here. If you do have some great ideas, great solutions to share with us, please do so. I also wanted to mention 2 other programs, the Happy Hours, which are more like social gatherings where we meet once a month. And basically this is all about sharing and connecting around specific sustainability issues. And then last but not least, of course, as an organization, we fully support policies that are in line with our vision and mission. So we've been doing more and more advocacy as well. Very quickly, the people behind SSMC, we have an 8 members, a board of directors that's strong of 8 members, and we are lucky enough to have some of them with us here today. I know that Terry Nagel, our chair, is with us here today, and then also wanted to thank Kirsten Keys. She's going to be our moderator. So you see we are a small but mighty staff, and then I would really want to express my thanks to our advisory council and the many volunteers that have contributed countless hours to making our programs successful. So thank you to all. So if you are interested in learning more and becoming involved, here is our website address. It's www.sustainablesanmateo.org. You can check our newsletters and other publications. And of course, we're always happy to hear other people joining us. So there are quite a bit of opportunities. So feel free to join one of our committees, apply for our advisory board, and our board of directors. So with that, you have my contact information here. And before I hand it over to Akansha to get us started with the indicators report, I did want to express a huge thank you to our sponsors for the indicators report. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much. With that, Akansha, up to you.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today at the launch of our 24th Annual Indicators Report. My name is Akansha Yadav, and I'm the Program Manager at Sustainable San Mateo County for Indicators Report Program. Our report is now live on the website. Please feel free to view it, download it, and don't forget to write about this on Twitter. Our event hashtag is Indicators Report 2020, and don't forget to tag us. I will now just share my screen. Give me a moment. All right, so I will begin with a bit of brief about our Indicators Report program. Every year, we track data on factors that highlight sustainability performance of San Mateo County, propelled by the philosophy, what gets measured gets managed. The report aims to drive impactful action on economic, environmental, and social equity issues. Each year we focus on a different sustainability topic. This year, 2020, has been quite a year. And despite all that, we continue to build on the momentum of previous years and have explored county's pathway to decarbonization, focusing on renewable energy and energy efficiency. The report provides a forward-looking view through comprehensive data insights, key challenges and actions, business and community case studies, and solutions for local cities for knowledge sharing. This report would not be possible without our dedicated committee and their valuable inputs. I would like to thank Christine, Leanne, John, Robert, Bernard, and Brian for their time and support. We would also like to thank our amazing team of volunteers who have worked towards making this report come alive this year. Now, I will very briefly talk about the main topics that we have covered this year. These include decarbonization measures around built systems such as buildings, water, transportation, and waste management, as well as strengthening the demand side for uptake of efficiency pathways through community outreach and financing. More information and details are in the full report, and I would encourage you all to check that out online. One of the built systems we looked at in detail this year were buildings. Buildings are a major contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, largely through the energy they use for internal temperature maintenance, production and transportation of energy, and off-gassing. In response, California's long-term energy efficient strategic plan calls for all new residential construction to be zero net energy in 2020, and for all new commercial buildings to be zero net energy by 2030. There are a number of ways to improve building energy efficiency. There's a form of architecture, biomimetic architecture, that tries to add environmentally responsible and resource efficient components to a building, taking inspiration from local climate and environment. Additionally, both passive and active solar design are effective. Studies have even shown that the use of particular vegetation can lower the temperature of building surfaces by 20 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit and drastically reduce the cooling demand from air conditioning units. Our renewable and other renewable energy sources include wind and geothermal energy. Wind certainly helps to smooth the energy spike seen between 4 and 9 p.m., also known as the duck curve, whilst geothermal is highly effective for larger scale plants and facilities. Again, more details in the full report, do check that out. There's additional progress being made through the implementation of Title 24 in California, a set of 12 individual codes, which include some of the nation's strictest energy efficient and general building requirements that are enforced by local jurisdictions. A particularly successful example in San Mateo County is the Half Moon Bay Library, which incorporates rooftop solar panels, a low albedo cool roof, natural ventilation, high performance heating and cooling systems, passive solar shading, and careful siting and design to reduce the need for energy. Moving on to water. Water use and energy use are inextricably related. The San Mateo County Energy and Water Strategy 2025 outlines 3 actions that have both energy and water benefits, namely identifying existing or new large volume water movement which has the capacity for energy generation. Second, developing large water tanks as energy storage. And third, deploying counterflow wastewater heat exchangers. In the report, we have also outlined a number of resources and programs for water conservation that can be explored by both residents and businesses. The COVID-19 pandemic has undoubtedly had a significant impact on regional economies, but also more specifically on the transportation sector. Samtrans saw a drop in ridership of 65 to 70% during the initial lockdown of the pandemic, and California transit agencies are expected to lose $2 billion in fare revenues and operational expenses, which will likely lead to trickle-down effects economically, and that will subsequently affect contractors and employees. However, the increase in working from home has been largely beneficial, leading to transportation emissions decreasing, rent savings, and increased workforce productivity. While all this is going on, there have been ongoing efforts to make the transportation sector more environmental friendly and equitable with programs such as the California Clean Transportation Program, the Transportation Equity Allied Movement Coalition, and Complete and Slow Streets. Efforts to improve the electric vehicle infrastructure have also incentivized uptake of EVs in the county. Another critical topic we have covered this year is waste management. The life cycle of materials is an important aspect of a sustainable society. Modern day waste management should be perceived as a valuable resource as there are opportunities to develop techniques that can create energy from waste. One such example is the Organics to Energy pilot program in the county. This initiative separates organic waste from trash, converts it into liquid slurry, and transports it to waste management treatment plants. There it is put into anaerobic digesters and converted to methane, which can be used to generate electricity and power engines. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has put this project on hold. However, when it is completed, it is projected to have the capacity to divert up to 200 tons of organic waste per day from landfills. Also, do look up our report for more information on a range of composting and waste management programs offered by the county for the residents. Most renewable energy technologies require enormous amounts of land if they are deployed at scale. I am referring to solar and wind farms in particular. One means of dispersing this need for large tracts of land is the use of microgrids, which can support community energy needs with better economics, reliability, and resilience, and reduce a community's carbon emissions. In comparison to the main grid, a microgrid can connect or disconnect from the main, meaning it can operate in parallel with the general grid or operate on its own during, for example, a power outage. An example of a well-functioning community microgrid in the county is the Stanford Redwood City microgrid, which uses resources of the research university and showcases how distributed energy resources can be configured to provide cost savings and resilience for campuses and buildings. As you can see from the graph, the use of microgrids has been instrumental in reducing Stanford's emissions over the past 10 years, and the success of this can be an inspiration for that can be achieved in the wider realms of the county and California. We are almost towards the end of the presentation, and I would cover some steps taken towards strengthening the demand side to catalyze clean energy transition. As far as renewable energy financing is concerned, the county is committed to providing financial incentives that will ease the transition to renewable energy. PACE, or Property Assessed Clean Energy, is an effective model that can fund solar, water, and energy efficiency projects for those trying to implement them in their homes. A collaboration between Bay Area energy agencies to provide economical and emissions-free battery storage has been a promising effort for increasing counties' energy resilience and stabilizing the grid. There have been a number of successful efforts to reach out to the community and educate the general population on the importance of energy efficiency. Our county's Office of Education is a leader in this area in the state with many programs running. There are also many online communities that county residents can become a part of or to educate and involve themselves in the county-wide efforts of improving efficiency. You will find more information about the bouquet of rebates and financing, as well as outreach programs in our report. Finally, I would like to bring your attention to the issue of energy equity and energy resilience as we transition from conventional fuel sources to cleaner energy, while also navigating the impacts of climate change, resulting in increased and more intense incidences of wildfires and heat waves. Emergencies such as these lead to demand surge and have the potential to impact pricing. Hence, it is imperative to build energy equity and grid resilience. To conclude, despite the eventful 2020 year, the county still shows huge promise for achieving significant improvements in energy efficiency and renewable energy use across a whole host of intensive sectors, such as construction, water, and transportation. Moreover, the county's commitment to create financial incentives and community outreach programs mean that reaching our sustainability goals will be a county-wide achievement that government organizations, cities, businesses, and households can contribute to and be a part of. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Josh Becker, California State Senate candidate and today's keynote speaker. Josh is an energy innovator and a nationally recognized leader in the clean energy community. He was a board member of the Clean Tech Open, America's largest clean energy business plan competitions, and co-founded New Cycle Capital, a pioneering firm investing in companies with a social mission, most notably O-Power and TerraPass. Over to you, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Sustainable San Mateo County. Thank you for all of you. Thank you for this wonderful report. I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully you can all see that. And again, thank you all for being here today. And it is so good to be among friends who care deeply about the environment and people that are concerned deeply about climate change. If you're like me, sometimes the news can be very demoralizing. Oops, just click here. Climate change is no longer just about preserving the environment for our children and grandchildren. It's already causing big problems today. We see this in the wildfires that have been ravaging California, making our air unhealthy to breathe and destroying our forests. 5 of the worst 10 fires in California's history happened this year. And for a few days in September, we had the worst air quality of anywhere on Earth. We see climate change in heat waves, setting record temperatures in cities across California, and the highest temperature ever recorded on Earth at Death Valley was 130 degrees. I was there, I thought it was hot. It was earlier this summer, 118 degrees, but then we actually hit 130 degrees. And we see climate change in the more destructive hurricanes. Recently we had 5 Atlantic storms at the same time for the first time ever. And we've already had so many storms this year, they ran out of names and had to start calling them Alpha and Beta. And I could go on and on. Anyone who's paying attention can see the signs. What does our president have to say? He says, they'll start getting cooler, just watch. Hoping that problems will miraculously go away is not a strategy. It has not worked for the pandemic. It's not going to work any better for climate change. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have reasons for hope. And I do have hope. I have hope because young people in America have stood up and demanded action. And our leaders are finally starting to take this seriously. I have hope because more Americans are waking up to the climate crisis. A recent poll, NPR and Marist, showed that 12% of voters listed climate change as their #1 priority. Only the virus, just barely, at 13%, and the economy at 21% were cited by more people. And there's evidence that even among Republican, attitudes have shifted. No other authority than Frank Luntz, a big Republican pollster, found that 55% of all Republicans are in favor of limiting carbon emissions. And that number is much higher for Republicans under 40. So it's hard to imagine a bit today, but it's reasonable to think that we can have bipartisan action going forward sometime soon. I still have hope because when President Trump decided to drop out of the Paris Agreement, cities and organizations across the country, including many here in San Mateo County, declared we are still in. Didn't just sit back, we took matters into our own hands. And I hope because California is already making significant progress. What we do here matters, maybe more than we sometimes realize. I hope because cities like my own hometown in Menlo Park are establishing reach codes to phase out the use of fossil fuels in our homes and businesses, a crucial piece of decarbonization. And that action didn't just start to clean up one city. It's now been modeled by 35 other cities in California taking those same reach codes and moving forward on decarbonization. And I've hoped because I've seen tremendous things that we can accomplish here in Silicon Valley when the right policies and incentives are in the right place. I'm proud that we have so many entrepreneurs, so many innovative companies that are deploying technologies that we need for decarbonization here in the Bay Area. And maybe some of you in the audience are part of that. Thank you for the work that you are doing. So what action can you do? What action can we all take? Many people ask me that. They say, hey, what can I do? A good first step is supporting organizations like Sustainable San Mateo County and many other groups that are researching climate issues and bringing important data to the public. So much of what actually gets done in government is driven by outside groups who supply the information that we need to make good, informed decisions. So we need these groups more than ever. Next, this should go without saying, is vote. In 2016, there were over 10 million environmentalists, and these are people who ranked environment as one of their top 3 priorities, who did not vote in an election that was decided by 77,000 votes in 3 states. So we can't let this happen again. Please make sure that you and everyone you know shows up to vote. And when it's time to replace your car, your furnace, your water heater, buy an electric model. In fact, make a promise you'll never again buy a product that burns fossil fuel if there's an electric alternative. Make it a career. If you have the right skills, join a company that's trying to be part of the solution. We're going to need a massive amount of private investment and innovation to make this transition to a clean energy economy possible. What a great opportunity for some of you out there. Or get involved in your own town. Ask your city council for a climate plan. Look for the models that are happening now throughout our county. Our cities are laboratories. We take these policies from cities and they can now be implemented statewide and nationally. What are some things that more we can do here in California? I'm personally excited to dig in and push climate policy forward. We don't have time for business as usual or government as usual. So I've been putting together ideas for what California is already doing well and where we're lagging and where new legislation can get us on a better path. I'd love to hear from all of you so that we can pull these plans together both right now and in the years to come. So don't be shy about reaching out. But let me share some of these thoughts with you. First, here's a picture, hopefully you can see it, of California's GHG emissions by sector. Our challenge is that we need to make this picture go to 0. The good news is that we made progress in decarbonizing the grid. In 2019, 55% of our electricity came from renewables and other zero carbon sources like hydro. Because of that, electricity is only 15% of our total emissions, but getting to 100% clean energy is still going to be a challenge. We still need more energy storage and other forms of dispatchable clean energy, so there are fewer and fewer times we need to rely on natural gas to power the grid. And we'll need to do a better job of integrating and leveraging distributed energy sources like rooftop solar, home batteries, smart thermostats that can help make the grid more resilient and avoid power outages. But clean electricity is just the start. We need to electrify most of everything, the rest of our energy use as possible. And today, transportation accounts for 50% of all emissions in California, along with most of the NOx and particulate matter that makes our air unhealthy. And for all the electric cars we're seeing in this area, this state as a whole really hasn't made much progress in decarbonizing our transportation sector. So we need to do two things: move most passenger cars and light duty or short distance trucks and buses to electricity. And we need low carbon fuels to power airplanes, ships, long haul trucks that cannot economically be converted to electricity. California is already doing a lot of things to promote the sale of electric vehicles, but of course more needs to be done. Just 2 weeks ago, the governor stepped forward and said we're going to phase out gas-powered cars by 2035 and similar measures for heavy vehicles by 2045. But how can we make that happen with incentives, and how can we do this even faster? At the same time, we'll need to promote low carbon fuels to decarbonize the rest. We already have a low carbon fuel standard, but there are a number of loopholes that need to be closed. And we all need to work towards that. I'll just mention that decarbonizing and cleaning up our trucks and our buses is also important for environmental justice. The air in our ports and along most transit routes is far less healthy than air in many, for example, wealthier neighborhoods, some of which are in this county. That the clean air has major health burdens on many areas of California, and many communities are suffering. Speaking of air pollution, if we're all in the room together, I'd ask for show of hands of people who are driven crazy by the loud noise and the presence of gas-powered leaf blowers. This actually, these two-stroke motors are a big source of our unhealthy air, and phasing out them is a step that we can also take forward. But big source is making progress in one of the areas that was mentioned in our report, decarbonizing our homes and commercial buildings. By the way, back to the clean energy, I love that stat that 91, I've already tweeted out, so please feel free to tweet and share on social media so we can share, all our friends can see what's happening here today. But I already shared that stat, that 91% of buildings being solar viable. I thought that was great, one of the many great stats from the indicators report. But decarbonize our home will mean mostly using electric heat pumps for space and water heating, as well as induction stoves and electric ovens for cooking. The technology we need exists, and in general with climate change, I'd say we used to think it was a technology issue. No, now it's really an adoption and political will issue, and we're still installing gas appliances that will be with us for 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Many cities in San Mateo County, as we mentioned, are taking steps to lock in all electric construction, and we need to do more statewide. Finally, I want to mention something that doesn't always get as much attention: methane emissions. It's the main component of natural gas, far more potent GHG than carbon dioxide. While emissions from our homes and commercial buildings are estimated at 10% of California's total emissions, the true environmental impact is twice as high or more if we include for all the damage from methane leaks from wells, pipelines, and storage facilities. Many methane emissions occur out of state, and so they're not actually even accounted for in California's number. But they occur because of our use of natural gas here in California. Also, most emissions from agriculture are methane from cows and manure. And then there's also emissions from the waste sector. The EDF estimates about 25% of all GHG impact is due from methane, and many of them are from just a few companies here in California. So there's more that we can do. So I want to then leave us finally with a call to action, because I'm mindful we have a great panel of experts that want to make sure we leave time for that discussion. And I'm excited for all of us to get to work. If any of you saw Kamala Harris recently, she gave this speech. She shared that our children and grandchildren will look in our eyes and ask us, where were you when the stakes were so high? They will ask us, what was it like? And we will tell them not just how we felt, but we will tell them what we did. So I look forward to all of us reconvening in the years going forward and be able to talk about what we've all done personally, what we've done here in this county, and what California has done to lead our nation and our country. Thank you very much.
Christine, you're mute.
Sorry, I'm back. Well, I was going to say, I mean, thank you so much, Josh, especially for these very inspiring closing words. And you're right, I mean, that's up to all of us. And I think with that, I would like to move us to our panel discussion. It will be moderated by Kirsten Keith. She's one of our board members, a former mayor of Menlo Park, and just fantastic at moderating. So take it on, Kirsten. And I think we are starting with David Canada, correct?
Yes, we are. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. And Josh, thanks for your great keynote speech. I want to welcome, we have a great panel, David Canada from Ideas Consulting, who we'll be starting with, and Silvia Lee of Facebook. We have Philip Kobernick of Peninsula Clean Energy, and of course, Josh Becker will be joining us on our panel as well. And we'd like to start with David. David, thanks for being here with us today. We have a couple of questions we want to start with you. Buildings are responsible for about 30% of San Mateo County's total greenhouse gas emissions. What are two of the most important measures to take for new buildings in order to achieve the greatest greenhouse gas emissions or reduction of them in an economical way? And what about existing buildings? Thanks, David.
Okay, so I'm going to do this quick. So there's actually the one thing actually that I'm going to throw on the table that's not on my slides is buy an electric car, but Philip's going to talk about that. So for buildings, we've been doing zero energy buildings for quite a while now, like 15 years, all electric. And the two areas where we've gotten the most pushback were water heaters and induction stoves. So let's start with water heaters. A few years ago, companies started coming out with what's called a heat pump water heater, which is kind of using the same technology in an air conditioner, except putting it in reverse. So air conditioners make your house cooler and the outside warmer. If you flipped it around backwards, it would make the outside cooler and the inside warmer. So it takes that same technology and makes hot water. Interestingly, it doesn't actually create heat out of the energy. It moves heat from one place to another, so they can be higher than 100% efficient. So a heat pump water heater, just a kind of residential off-the-shelf variety, is like, over 200% efficient. So that means for every kilowatt of electricity you put in, you create over 2 kilowatts of heat in the water. And that's compared to, what's kind of state of the art right now with gas boilers is something called a condensing gas boiler, which is about 90% efficient, and the old boilers were about 70% efficient. So that technology is there now. We've been designing it for a number of years now. You can get it commercial. That Colmac in the picture is a commercial version of a water heater. Domestic water heater, and that Sandin is a residential version. Okay, next slide. The other place we're getting a lot of pushback is with gas cooking. And so there's this kind of belief that with gas cooking, that, it's hotter, it's faster, it's better. And the actual fact is that's not true with induction stoves. So that picture there is actually my kitchen. So I bit the bullet and I use induction, and that's actually, interestingly enough, an induction wok burner, which works amazingly well. they're actually more efficient than either traditional electric or natural gas burners. And believe it or not, they are faster than gas. So my children, when we go visit my sister's house in Philadelphia, complain that Aunt Kathy's gas burner is really slow. In addition to that, there's burning natural gas in your house is not the best thing you can do for the indoor air quality. So you start getting high amounts of NOx and formaldehyde and things like that building up in your house unless you have a really good exhaust hood system, which if you're anything like most of the houses around here, the exhaust hood systems are pretty crap in kitchens. Okay, next slide. Kirsten, there's a question attached to this, right?
Yes, there is. Building electrification is a strategy with big greenhouse gas reduction potential when the energy supply is 100% renewable energy. What are some of the best ways to ensure resilience in case of blackout?
Sorry, the last part of the first question. That was
that
it. What about existing buildings? That's what this slide was about.
Sorry about that. What about the existing buildings?
So that's a huge, huge, huge issue, it turns out. So, I mean, if you think about it, if every new building that we do is net zero energy, all that means is that the amount of carbon that's being emitted from natural gas in the existing buildings doesn't change, right? And so if you look at, this is a Google map of San Mateo County, all those gray areas along the 101 corridor there are emitting natural gas or emitting carbon dioxide when they're burning natural gas. So that needs to be addressed, and that's a real challenge for the building industry. You know, a lot of it is retrofitting with electric induction stoves and water heaters, you know, heat pump water heaters and things like that, and heat pumps for heating the buildings. But sometimes that's going to require upgrades to the electrical systems and things like that. So it's not a slam dunk, and it's certainly not dirt cheap. No. But I think those are the things that need to be worked on. I know there's a lot of studying and innovation going on in that area. I was involved with a CEC study where we're actually looking at kind of how can you address that, but that's kind of the next big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So then the next slide was...
and David, you know what? We're just a little bit over. So okay. I'm going to move on to Silvia. And then thank you so much, David.
Sounds good.
And Silvia, we're happy to have you here with us as well from Facebook. And please, we're excited to hear more about the net zero goal that Facebook has just set. So let us know.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So a few weeks ago, Facebook set a new set of climate goals. So about 10 years ago, we set 100% renewable energy goals to support all of our operations. And we're very well on track to meet that goal this year. So currently we have over 5.4 gigawatts of new wind and solar projects under contract. And in the US, we are the largest corporate procurer of renewable energy in 2020. So as we reached this goal, we started thinking about what is the next generation of goals that we want to set as a company. And so if you could go to the next slide. So our next generation goal is net zero. Historically, our goal has very much focused on our own operations. So, you know, our headquarters in Menlo Park, electrifying that as much as possible, and then, you know, procuring renewable energy, as well as for our data centers around the world. But we really want to expand our responsibility to include our entire value chain. So what does that mean, value chain? It touches on a lot of what other speakers have talked about. It's stuff around business travel, our employee commuting, also things we purchase as a company. So all of that in total we intend to be net zero in 2030. So our plan is to try to reduce as much as possible, and a lot of that will require very strong engagement with our suppliers that that we depend on. You have to revisit a lot of different designs, efficiencies in our hardware, for example, and then for whatever remaining emissions that we cannot reduce, we will be supporting carbon removal offsets to get to net zero. And the reason we are focusing on 2030 net zero is because the IPCC, the UN Paris Agreement says that the world needs to be net zero by 2050. And we feel that being a technology company and being a leader in this space, that we can see if we can try to do this 20 years in advance, to explore different ways to try to get at this, this global goal.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think that what you just said is that the world needs to be net zero by 2050 is really, quite a statement. So it's going to take a lot of work by everybody. Thank you, Silvia. We'll come back to you later when we ask other questions as well. And now we're welcoming Philip Kobernick of Peninsula Clean Energy. Philip, thank you so much for being here with us today. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. For our first question for you is, can you please tell us about the EV load shifting and why this is critical?
Yes, for sure. And again, thanks for having me. I'd like to start by giving a quick introduction to Peninsula Clean Energy and then go into EV load shifting for those who might be unfamiliar with exactly what Peninsula Clean Energy is. So we are San Mateo County's locally controlled electricity provider, reducing emissions and offering customer choices at competitive rates. And another critical point to add here is that Peninsula Clean Energy, we're a nonprofit public agency. So we invest in public programs to help the county reduce emissions, which I help develop on the programs team. Okay, next slide, please. All right, how does it work? So at Peninsula Clean Energy, we develop new renewable energy contracts and new renewable energy sources. We just turned on a huge solar array, a 200 megawatt solar array this year as one example, and provide that to San Mateo County residents and businesses. And we do that through PG&E's infrastructure. So if you are a Peninsula Clean Energy customer, which the vast majority of people in the county are, you will still get your bill from PG&E, but you'll notice that Peninsula Clean Energy is your electricity provider. Okay, so I wanted to get that out of the way before we dive into load shifting. So
thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, actually the one after that. But that is a beautiful picture of the new solar array that we turned on this year, 200 megawatts coming from east of San Jose. Okay, next slide. So buying an electric vehicle is certainly one of, oh, you know what, actually, let me just pause a quick thing. I would love to add on to one thing that Josh said earlier too, about something you can do right now. One additional thing to that list, something you could do literally today, is opt up to 100% renewable energy from Peninsula Clean Energy. We are providing 90% greenhouse gas free energy, and we will in the next 2 years be at 100% greenhouse gas free energy. But you can opt up to 100% right now, and you can do that on the Peninsula Clean Energy website. Okay, back to EVs. Sorry, that was a long way around there.
Good plug.
So switching to an electric vehicle is certainly one of the best things you can do for the environment, but left unmanaged, EV charging can certainly put pressures on the energy grid. And so that's why Peninsula Clean Energy, we're experimenting with some different managed charging solutions that go beyond just rate design and signals that you would be getting from your time of use rate. And this is in support of our goal to be, to provide rather 100% renewable energy on an hourly basis, 24/7 by 2025. So every hour of the day, you'd be getting 100% renewable energy. And that's going to mean a few things. Battery storage is certainly part of that. And then shifting demand is another part of that. So that's where this program comes in. So what we're doing is we're looking to experiment with more ways to encourage people to shift their EV charging out of the on-peak window, which is the evening ramp-up hours. So if you're familiar with the duck curve, which is the picture on the top there, that steep ramp-up is really where the most pressure occurs. So encouraging folks to charge in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. And the way that we're tinkering with that is through active managed charging. We've piloted with a company called Flex Charging, where we actually take control of charging schedules on behalf of customers and start moving them around dynamically. So we're reducing pressure on the grid. So that's one thing that we're experimenting with, and we'll be rolling that out further in 2021.
Great, thanks, Philip. I think reducing pressure on the grid is really important, and one of the questions that came up, we'll come back to, because that is a question that keeps coming up. How much can the grid handle? And then Josh, we want to thank you for being with us again today. And I have a question for you. Can you talk about how does social equity come into play when we're looking at ways to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions at scale?
Well, I'd say it comes in a big way because we have to go fast. And to do that, we have to be inclusive. In fact, just last night, I was talking to a state senator from his district is equally as big as Senator Hill's district here that covers most of San Mateo County. And, she was concerned about the impact of all these things, of electric homes and of, electric vehicles on her constituents, on lower income Californians. So if we're going to go fast, we have to be inclusive, and we have to find a way to bring everyone along. So, some of the proposals I think that will have the most support are ones that combine clean energy with direct air improvements and health outcomes, as well as jobs. Yeah. So at Full Circle Fund, which is a group I founded 20 years ago to support nonprofits working in a number of areas, including clean energy, we supported grid alternatives early on, and now that's the nation's largest nonprofit solar installer, and they're working in East Palo Alto, for example, and it's a triple win in terms of reducing energy prices in people's homes, carbon reduction, of course, but also jobs in terms of job training, in terms of installing, who's installing those solar panels. So, getting electrifying trucks around ports, the people living near those ports don't have the poor air quality that they have today. Making sure when we're doing incentives, it's not just for wealthy people to buy EVs. In fact, wealthy people probably don't need more incentives at this point. It's really for lower income folks, and including adding back in hybrid cars for people, for those super regional commuters who can't afford or don't have the option really of buying an electric car for various reasons. So those are some of the things that we need to look at to go fast and be inclusive.
Good. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. I'm going to do a lightning round question for all of you. This is the first question. How can we keep the positive momentum of less pollution after COVID-19 subsides? And we'll just do a lightning round. And we'll start with Silvia.
Building on what others have said, I think we are seeing reduction as a company because people aren't commuting, we're not doing business travel. Are there processes that we can now put in place and things that we can do now so that we don't go back to the way it was? And so those are the sort of things that we're actively looking at so we can continue to have lower emissions as a company.
Great. And David, I'll ask you this lightning round, that same question. And then Philip, I'm going to change the question for you.
So I think this meeting is a great example. It's being able to collaborate more online and have to drive to client meetings and other meetings less. So I think that will allow us to kind of stay out of cars and keep the carbon emissions down.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And Philip, I have a question for you that's come in that we have lots of questions coming in, and unfortunately we won't be able to get to all of them, as Christine noted, but we want to thank all of you for asking your questions, and we'll try to get answers to you in the future, but because of our 1 hour time limit, we're going to not be able to get to all of them today. But Philip, one question that people really want to know is, can the grid handle more electrification, and how?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I certainly will first admit that I'm not an expert on the sort of infrastructure components of where grid modernization comes into play and transmission congestion opportunities, although those certainly exist. But I will point out that we're getting to the point where we're seeing daytime energy have a surplus of solar energy, right? So there is excess supply available on the grid in the middle of the day. So that question also needs to take into account when you're charging, when you're using electricity. So can the grid handle it? For sure, for now, and it looks like there is wide surplus. It's really during key congestion times that the most challenging aspects of electrification occur. And that's where things like load shifting, battery supply, storage, things like that will really help.
Great, thanks, Philip. I'm going to ask one last question, lightning round for our panelists. And this is, if you had a magic wand and you could have one wish to make a low carbon future possible, what would you wish for? Lightning round. And we'll start with Josh.
I'll say universal agreement that this is important, that Democrats and Republicans can work together on solutions, and that we take the urgency from the climate fires when we couldn't breathe, and we carry that urgency with us.
Great. David.
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's this interesting problem that I've been working on for a couple of years that I don't know that I know the answer to just yet. But if you look at renewable energy, photovoltaics, the ratio of the amount of energy generated in the summer to the amount of energy generated in the winter is like 4 to 1. And we don't have any way of storing summer energy to use in the winter. So kind of figuring out how to solve that problem is an interesting problem to me.
Great. And Silvia.
Just increasing the priority of climate as a core global issue that involves everyone to be participating in the solutions. So yeah, just elevating climate change as an issue.
And thank you to Facebook for leading, by example here. And Philip.
Yeah, I would say the continuing focus on environmental justice as part of the sustainability movement. I think it's been a really great kind of growth for the sustainability movement, and at a more specific level that looks at like how do we encourage more equitable adoption of vehicle electrification in California, for sure. So I think that's a really key component to our future.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and it is 11:53. And I want to thank everybody for coming today and coming for our launch of our indicators report for sustainable San Mateo County. And thank you to our panelists for being out there in the field, doing all the great work that needs to be done, talking to people about these issues and elevating them. We couldn't be more proud to have all of you here with us today. And we want to keep working with you and promoting these green issues. And I just want to close with a couple of notes that I took. The world needs to be net zero by 2050. That's Silvia, thank you for bringing that up. Philip, I loved what you said. A simple thing for everybody to do right now is opt up to 100% renewable energy. Just opt up, make it happen. And everybody can do that now, so that's great. And then vote, right? Josh, vote. Everybody has to vote. And buy electric. David, thank you. Buy electric. We all know that that's got to be what happens because California will be the first state to require that very soon. So buy electric. And then please feel free, everybody on with us today, to join us for our next happy hour. And Christine can email that out to when that will be. And we're excited to have happy hours, to have communal discussions where we break out into breakout rooms and have discussions with everybody. So thanks again for being with us. Carry on the great work you're doing, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kirsten, and thank you, speakers. I mean, amazing. I mean, I wish we would have like the whole day, but we don't. So as Kirsten said, we'll try our best from the SSMC side to collect all the questions and have them answered as good as it goes. And with that, I mean, please do stay connected. Check our website. Again, it's www.sunmateo.org. sustainablesanmateo.org. And we hope you're staying involved. I mean, feel free to just message us with any questions, or if you have suggestions on partnerships, initiatives, I mean, we love to hear from them as well. So with that, again, a big thank you to all of our panelists and speakers, and you have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten, for a fabulous moderation. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.